Using Excel can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you're working with text. Everybody knows that Excel is really good at doing math. But what if you have to deal with text? Let's say you get an email from your boss who says, here's a spreadsheet. It's got last name, comma, first name. I need those names separated into their own columns. I need last name, no comma, first name. How do you do that? Well, just like anything else in Excel, there's a bunch of different ways of doing the same thing. But in this case, we're going to use text to column. So I'll show you how the text to column wizard works. It's kind of cool. It's pretty quick and painless also. So I've got my spreadsheet here and I have the contact names that need to be separated out, last name, first name. I'm just going to click, drag, and select them all. So Excel knows, hey, I want this entire range transferred to the D&E column. Very first thing I'm going to do is go up to the Data tab. Now, the Data tab has a lot going on. You probably have used this for sort, maybe for filter, but the text to column in the Data Tools section is sitting right here, and you might be like, I've never used that before. I don't know what it is. Anytime you hover over something in any Microsoft program these days, 365 or desktop versions, you'll notice that there's a breakdown that says, here's what this does. Split a single column of text into multiple columns. Okay, that sounds like what we're trying to do. If I click text to columns here, you're going to see a wizard that pops up. Most of the time when you're dealing with wizards, Excel sort of knows what the standard settings are, what most people actually use the function for. In this case, we're going to keep it set on delimited, which is the standard setting, because we're dealing with characters like commas. We have last name, comma, first name. Sometimes there's tabs in between. So Excel knows, okay, well, I'm looking for something specific. In this case, it's going to be for a comma. Now, as I click next, you'll see that basically I've got, a bunch of different options here. Sometimes the first time you use it, tab is selected up at the top. And if you look down at the data preview, you can see, well, that's not what I wanted. That doesn't look exactly like what I want. And the reason being is Excel doesn't actually know what it's looking for to split the text. So in the data preview, it's just showing you at the bottom, oh, okay, this is what I think it is. Well, in this case, we want to uncheck tab and select comma. Now, you'll notice that it's split it into what appears to be two different columns, and that's exactly what it would do. You also can see that the first names are a little bit off to the right. Maybe I just want to pull them back so they're to the far left of the actual cell. So I'll put space there as well. If you notice, I'll show you again, if you click space and then space again, it pulls the text closer to the left-hand side of the cell. All right, well, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead to next. Now, the next thing that Excel is asking here is, where do you want me to put this data? It would seem fairly logical to click on each one of these columns and say, all right, well, I want the last name here. So I'm going to do this and then come back in here. And then I want my first name column over here. But let me show you what happens when you do that. All right, let me show you what happens when you do that. It seems logical, but it doesn't work that way. So if I click OK, finish, Excel says, wait a second, that reference isn't valid. So remember, what Excel's trying to do here is basically say this, comma, this. Split it the comma and put it into two distinct cells. Well, all we did was select one cell range for each column. And like I said, it seems logical, especially because it gets highlighted in there, but that's not actually what Excel is looking for. What Excel is looking for is, where do I put all of this information? If you look up here where the destination is, you can basically see that it's got a formula in there, equals and D and to and absolute references and all sorts of stuff. That's Excel speak. You don't need to speak Excel in this particular section. So let's click this and collapse it up again and say, okay, Excel, my bad. I want to put all of these contact names in two distinct cells, last name and then first name. All right, so now it's got the correct destination in there and Excel's going to be happy with that. So I'll click on finish. Now notice you've got the last name and the first name here. In fact, if you really wanted to, you could delete the contact names column. And if I just reached up here and said, okay, well, my boss doesn't want that anymore, I can just delete that. and that goes away. And now we have last name and first name. Sometimes when you're working with formulas in Excel, you'll notice that as soon as you delete data, it gives you all this like weird like hashtag ref and invalid and all of this stuff. Well, that's because you're working with a function that's relating to other data. In this case, Excel just said, all right, here's what I'm looking at, here's where I'm putting it, here's how I'm representing it. And once it's done, I don't need that additional data. So you can see that text to columns is a quick and very easy way of getting last name, first name. Now, what if your boss said, well, I want first name, last name? A quick and easy way to do this without using a function like text join or concatenate is to just simply highlight this, copy it or cut it, and then I'll cut, and then I'll click on C, left click, and right click to insert a column, and then I will paste. So now you've got the first name, last name, and that gives you the opportunity to present it in a way very quick, very painless, very easy. You don't need to use any functions. Now there are functions out there like text join, which is brand new to the 2016 versions anyway. So it's a newer formula, as well as something called concatenate. So I'll put together some other videos on those things if you want to check them out. Definitely do so. But until then, that text to columns on the data tab is the easiest and fastest way to separate your text in a quick and efficient manner.